All right, President Biden is making his final preparations in Brussels before tomorrow's summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Geneva, Switzerland. Joining us this morning for more on this is the former chief of staff at the National Security Council and CIA analyst Fred Fleitz. Fred, good morning. My goodness, we have a lot to talk about today, huh?
I think so. Man, Biden is having a great time at these meetings with the Europeans, sitting around raising global taxes, talking about global warming, and they're all so happy to have an American president who doesn't raise unpleasant questions like NATO carrying its own weight or fair trade practices. Isn't it, Trump is really there. He's living rent free in the minds of every single person at these meetings. He's always there.
Isn't it great, Fred, to have an American president that cooperates again with NATO leaders and members of the G7?
Well, I mean, they want him there because he's a pliant American president. He's not going to do anything without the permission of the Europeans. They did not like Trump because he was an assertive American president. He didn't think that Europe should have a say over U.S. foreign policy or U.S. sovereignty. He did things, politically inconvenient things that they did not want to do. And, these statements we heard out of NATO that were slightly critical of China, that was started by Trump. NATO never wanted to do that.
No,
Again,
NATO
Biden
wouldn't acknowledge China last year. Yeah, 1 year ago, NATO didn't even use the word China. It was xenophobic to say China. And Trump, he was unpredictable, and I think that worked to his advantage when it came to foreign policy. All right, tomorrow is going to be the first face-to-face between Putin and Biden with Biden as president. How strong a stance do you expect Biden to take? Do you expect him to lay out any consequences for noncompliance, cyber attacks, that sort of thing?
I'm really worried about this. These summits are supposed to be pre-cooked events. Lower level people work it out, then the top leaders get together, then they have a joint press conference and talk about their achievements. Biden wants to go in there and lecture Putin so he can say he's tougher than Trump. Putin's not going to stand for that. He's going to lecture back. Biden will then do a solo press conference because he's afraid to do one with Putin. Putin will do his own and he'll be laughing at Biden. In fact, Putin's advisors are already mocking Biden's mental abilities. I hate to talk about that, but this is a disaster in the making, and Biden asked for this meeting.
All right, so Fred, I have a question scripted, but I'm going to ask you something different because you brought this up, and I think you make a good point. With a joint press conference, you stand there on the same stage, you field questions from the very same reporters, and a lot of communication is nonverbal. So the American people, the people of Russia, and the world at large, they can evaluate these two leaders for themselves. But by doing it this way, Putin then has the forum where he can mock President Biden or American policy or positions or whatever happens in that closed-door meeting, and President Biden won't have the opportunity to respond.
That's right. Biden's going to say all kinds of things in a rambling press conference about how tough he was. Putin, who is a much sharper, younger man, he's going to give a conference and he's going to make mincemeat of whatever Biden said. Biden is setting himself up here. He should never have agreed to do this.
I'm curious, people forget Crimea happened while Joe Biden was vice president. It happened back in 2014. In fact, the Obama administration at that time was criticized by the left and the right for being too soft on Russia. Do you expect this to be a different Joe Biden walking into the room, the summit room, tomorrow?
I think Biden will have a long list of transgressions he's going to try to lecture Putin on. Putin's going to laugh at him, and he's going to read his own list of transgressions against the United States. This is not the way you deal with a foreign leader. If there's differences between the countries, they need to be negotiated at lower levels. The two leaders meet together on how they're going to cooperate. This is all about Biden showing he's tougher than Trump. It's not going to serve American national interests.
Quickly on the exchange of cyber criminals, what do you think that's really about? Why does Putin want this so badly?
Well, let's think about this. Putin said, look, we'll exchange our cyber criminals. If you'll exchange yours, send them back to Russia. This implies Putin knows who Russia's cyber criminals are, which I think he probably does. But the so-called criminals in the U.S. are probably dissidents. And then Biden agreed to this without talking to his staff. They had to walk it back. So I don't know what Putin was really trying to do here other than maybe setting a trap to see whether Biden would agree to this.
Yeah, and he did. And then Jake Sullivan had to walk that back. Fred Fleitz, we have a lot to get into and a lot to discuss over the next 24 to 36 hours. Appreciate you coming on with us now 3 days in a row. But again, this is a historic trip, and there's a lot to get into, so we appreciate it. That's Fred Fleitz joining us. Fred, we'll see you again soon.
Thanks.
All right, stay with us. A lot more Wake Up America coming up after the break.
American Medicine Today features cutting-edge medical and science innovators, previous surgical guests of the Bonati Spine Institute, and a medical professional's insight on political issues plaguing our nation and healthcare. American Medicine Today, Saturdays at 4 on Newsmax.
Of course the AC dies in the middle of summer. Luckily, we're members of American Home Shield.
American Home Shield provides home service plans that help cover the costs when parts of more than 20 home systems and appliances wear out, like our AC just did. And if they can't repair it, they'll replace it.
This is totally fine. I don't have to worry about finding someone to fix my fridge. I can just stick to making breakfast. American Home Shield has flexible plans to fit your budget and needs.
This old toilet's been flushing for...
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.